I'm Chef Frank, this is Protocooks, and today we're making pot stickers. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to like and subscribe. And as always, the recipe's in the description down below. Dumplings are a food that you will see everywhere. They're universal. Every culture has a type of dumpling. And for the most part, dumplings are a way to take a little bit of meat and stretch it out and feed a crowd. Before we start making this, I want to talk about the ingredients that I have. Ground pork. The pork I bought in the supermarket is fairly lean. It's about 80-20. I like for my dumplings to have a little more fat, so I bought some pork fat. I ground it up and I'm going to mix it in with that. So a little extra fat makes them a little extra juicy. Chinese rice wine. I like Chinese rice wine. This gives this like really nice base umami flavor. If you can't find Chinese rice wine, get some dry sherry. Soy sauce. I'm using Filipino soy sauce. I like the flavor of this more than I like the regular store brand. If you don't have this, you can always just use the store brand. And I have MSG. MSG is a type of salt, sodium with glutamic acid. This is something that's naturally occurring in mushrooms, Parmesan cheese, tomatoes. This is just the pure form. I'm just going to use a little for kind of accent. It gives it a little more pop of flavor. So if you can't find MSG, you can skip it. Ginger, fresh ginger. I'm going to show you guys how to peel that and chop it up. I have some cornstarch. Cornstarch is going to go in this to help bind, as well as I'm going to put it on my tray to keep my pot stickers from sticking on the tray. Garlic chives. Garlic chives I get in an Asian market. They're chives that are super garlicky. If you can't find garlic chives, use a mixture of scallions and just regular garlic. I'm using savoy cabbage. Savoy cabbage is like a mix between regular green cabbage and Napa cabbage. It's curly, it's a little fluffy. And then I have my dumpling wrappers. These are Shanghai style, which are thick white dumpling wrappers. You can make your own, but for the most part, I like to buy these. They're reasonable and they keep really well. I like to use cabbage in my pot stickers. Cabbage does a bunch of stuff for our pot stickers. It adds flavor, it adds texture, it stretches the meat a little, it gives us some bulk. It also adds some moisture to the end product. So cabbage is a really great thing to throw into your pot stickers, and this is what I do to it. I'm going to cut the bottom off, and then usually when I process cabbage, I cut through the stem end. Okay, I only need about 1/4 of this cabbage, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the core out. So the core is just a little tough. It's not that you can't use it, but I just tend to cut it out. I'm going to cut it in 1/4. I don't need all of this. And then I'm going to shred this as fine as I can. Shred it fine. Okay, I'm going to run my knife through it once so I don't have any really long strands. And this all goes into a colander. So I have my colander right here, and I'm going to salt it. So I get a nice hefty pinch of salt, right? And a lot of this salt, by the way, will come out. And I'm just going to really squeeze the crap out of this. Just give it a squeeze, right? And this is going to draw some of the moisture out. It's going to make it kind of deflate a little. And I'm just going to leave it in the colander over here for about 10-15 minutes. A lot of the salt will rinse off with the juice of the cabbage. So I'm going to put that aside and let it drain out. Next thing I want to take care of is ginger. And when I peel ginger, a lot of people will use a peeler. I don't like using a peeler. If there's any dry pieces, I get the dry pieces off, right? And I just get a spoon and peel. Ginger, the peel comes off with a spoon. And that's what I do. I peel it off with a spoon. The spoon gets around all the angles. Look at that. Okay? So get as much off as you can. Some people will actually just throw the peel in. I just like to take it off. Sometimes it has a little too much texture. And then I'm going to cut into slices, fairly thin slices. And then I cut these again. So I'm going to use probably like 3 slices of this. And when I was a kid, I watched PBS. And Martin Yan and Yanka and Cook used to do this. You get the ginger, you lay it on its side, you give it a smash, and it's pretty much chopped already. And this is what I like to do for my ginger. It does shoot across the room occasionally. It's okay. We give it a smash, and then I just do a little rough chop through this. Just to make sure there's no big chunks. And that's how I handle my ginger. I also want to chop up our garlic chives. These things are amazing. If you can't find them, again, like I said, you can always just use some garlic and some scallions, but I think these are delicious. They kind of serve the purpose and do both. If there's any kind of like dry ends, I line these up. Get rid of the dry ends. If there's any dry tops, same thing, just get rid of the dry tops. And I'm just gonna cut these as small as I can. I'm using a fair amount. I think I'm using at least a cup, which is a lot, but I like the flavor. I bit off more than I can chew with that. My God, they smell so good. All right, and that's our garlic chives. Everything's prepared, time to assemble the filling. I like to wear gloves because I really like to get in there and mix this up really well. So I just get a pair of gloves. I'm going to get the cabbage. The cabbage had the salt on it. I'm gonna just squeeze it out and try and get any water out. That just goes directly in. Squeeze as much water out as you can. Cabbage is in. I'm gonna add my pork fat. I'm gonna add my ginger, my garlic chives. So basically everything's just going in, guys. Everything into the pool. My MSG, my cornstarch, my rice wine, soy sauce, and I'm just gonna use the egg white in here. I'm not gonna use the yolk. Everything's in the pool. Now I get to get in there with my hands. Just break everything up, and I'm really just gonna work this really well and get it mixed up together. Smells absolutely awesome. I get everything in there, and I try and blend it really, really well. I want it to like really mash together. So I'm gonna mix this until it gets a little sticky. I want it to be a little sticky, and basically what happens if I stick it on my hand, I want it to stick. I want it to be tacky. And that's what I'm looking for the final mix, okay? What I'm also gonna do is I'm going to take my gloves off, and I'm gonna get a little piece. I'm gonna put it in a frying pan, and I'm gonna pre-cook it and taste how this filling tastes now. Super important to do. You wanna make sure your seasoning's right. You wanna make sure that you don't need some more soy sauce. Maybe you need some more garlic chives. So we're gonna cook a little piece, and we're gonna give it a taste, and then we can fill. Okay, I'm gonna go over to the stove and make a little test piece. All right, so I cooked it through. I got my Star Wars tasting spoon. Let me give it a taste. I think it needs a little more seasoning, like salt, maybe a touch more soy sauce. So I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna readjust, and I think we'll be good to go. So I have my dumpling wrappers. I'm gonna leave them in the tray, but I'm gonna just cover them with a towel so they don't get dried out. Like these need to stay kind of bendy and pliable. So I'm just gonna put a towel over them, put them aside so they don't dry out. I have cornstarch in my tray, and I like to put a little cornstarch down in the tray. It absorbs excess moisture. Yeah, I know, I'm doing it janky like this with the box, right? The cornstarch not only absorbs excess moisture from the pot stickers, it'll also help give us a nice crustiness. So I just give this a little bit of a shake. It goes on the bottom of my tray, and that goes aside. I have some water to help seal my dumplings, and I have my filling. So here we go. Funny thing is that up until I started working in culinary school, I really wasn't good at folding these. One of my students actually told me how to do this. So you never know where you can learn, and you should always be open to learning from anyone, right? So I get my water. I'm gonna basically go fairly heavy with the water, about 3/4 of the way around. I'm going to fill with a fair amount of dumpling filling. It's probably like a teaspoon. You don't want to overfill these because they will squeeze out. And I'm gonna push it in the center, okay? I make this into like a taco, and I'm gonna squeeze. My two fingers go against each other, so the side that's facing me is always gonna be flat, and the side that's facing the camera is always gonna be crimped. So we fold. My finger that's on the inside of the dumpling helps hold in the filling. So I have this really nice crimp side, flat bottom, so that these kind of stand up when we put them in the pan. Okay, we're gonna do a bunch more right? Squeeze it tight to make sure that nothing is coming out. I get my little wrapper here. Make sure that I put plenty of water to help it stick. A nice helping of our filling, right? Flatten it out with one finger and I kind of hold it like a taco. And then I crimp it together. My thumb, my 2 pointers kind of oppose each other and I squeeze. Squeeze. Squeeze tight. Squeeze tight. Make sure that the filling stays in. And give it a nice tight squeeze at the end. Right? You don't want these busting open. So we have our dumpling wrapper. We're going to get it nice and damp. Get a nice kind of dollop of filling in there. Okay. Fold it in half. Tuck it in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our thumb and pointer and squeeze. And then our 2 pointers make a fold. So the pointer fingers are making the fold. The thumb is squeezing between the thumb and the pointer. And we get our nice folds there. And that's our pot sticker. And now it's time to cook. We're ready to cook, but before we do, I want to talk about how pot stickers kind of came about, or at least a legend. One of the many stories, okay? Legend is that there was a Chinese cook in a royal court that burned the dumplings and didn't want to get in trouble for it, so he served them anyway, and he pawned it off as his own idea. People loved it. It was all the rage, and that's just one of the stories that I know, or at least I tell people. I think it's kind of funny.
Sounds like a chef.
Sounds like a chef. That's what my wife said. I prefer to use a nonstick pan. If you don't have one, you can use a regular pan as well. You just got to be a little more careful. So nonstick pan, a little vegetable oil down in the bottom, right? So this is going to start our browning. I have some water, I have a lid, and I have my dumplings ready to go. So there are some styles of dumplings where instead of water, you'll put in like a mixture of water and cornstarch, and then you get this really nice lacy kind of crispy bottom. I'm not really going for that today, but I am looking for my dumplings to come out in one big piece. So I'm gonna stick them kind of close together. I'm not gonna worry about them touching, right? So I'm just gonna get the oil start to get hot, and then I'm gonna lay these out really close to each other. Back to back. Make them look pretty, right? Because when I turn these out onto my plate, I want them to look pretty when they come out. Snuggle them in together. Maybe I could fit one more in there. And then I'm going to put a couple in the center. Actually, I'll try and put like 3 in the center. And this is where that flat bottom is really important. You want your bottom to be flat on these so that they're nice and flat and they get brown on the bottom. And all that I'm looking for now is that they start to brown off. So I pick them up, I look at them, they're starting to get a little brown. I want them to get a little browner. See, there we go. See how we're getting nice and brown there? I'm just gonna turn it around, make sure they're getting nice and brown everywhere. Okay, and if you're working over a flame, this is really important. You add your water all at once, not drip it in there, just pour it in there. I'm gonna just go up about halfway up the dumpling. About halfway up. Lid is on and I let them steam. I'm gonna let them steam for about 5 to 7 minutes and then I'm gonna take the lid off. When we take the lid off, we want all the water to evaporate. All right, it's been about 5-7 minutes. Lid comes off. They're starting to get nice and soft. I'm going to turn my heat to kind of medium heat, and I'm going to let this bubble away. So the key right now is to let all of this moisture boil away until it starts to sizzle and get brown again. So I'm kind of adjusting my temperature at this point. If it's too high, it's going to really get burnt. So I just kind of put it down to a medium heat, but you can see that the bubbles are getting bigger. The moisture is cooking away. If I give it a shake, they're not really sticking all that much, which is good. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to kind of give it a little shake, make sure they're not sticking. You can hear it sizzling away. See? That nice crackling sound, that's what we want. I still see a lot of moisture there, but so we're just gonna wait until it starts to kind of get nice and brown. And it actually, right now, what you see is that the moisture and the oil is still kind of like emulsified. You'll see kind of like it break, and then you'll just see it kind of get a little oily, and that's what I'm looking for. Give it a little shake. Oh, look, see how it all moves? It all moves together? That's what I want. We're almost there. Now, if you look at it cooking, you can see that it was kind of white and bubbly. All that moisture is gone, and you can hear it snap, crackle, and pop. You can see there's oil in the bottom of the pan, right? And that's kind of where we want to go. Moisture is boiled out. The filling is cooked. The wrappers are cooked, and now we're going to shut it off. What I like to do here is get a plate that's a little bit bigger than my pan. Hold it nice and tight. 1, 2, 3. Oh, look at that. All right, so they shifted a little, but watch. Give it a little shake. Look at that, right? Nice and brown. Okay, it didn't turn out as perfectly as I wanted to, but look, aren't they gorgeous? Brown on the bottom, not burned, kind of sticking together a little, perfectly steamed. It's time to taste them. All right, let's give it a taste. All I have here is a little bit of soy sauce and vinegar in equal proportions as a dipping sauce. I'm gonna taste one, I'll taste half of one without it first. My goodness, it is delicious. The filling is juicy, flavorful. There's a little crunch from the outside here. Oh my God. Delicious, crispy, soft, chewy. It's got everything. You got to try it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Hit the little bell to get a notification when we have a new video. We try and do one every week. We have merch in the link down below. We would like to thank our Patreon patrons. Thanks for your help. We really appreciate it. We also have a P.O. box down there as well. And that's it. That's Potstickers. I'm Chef Frank. This is Protocooks. Have a good one.